Most organizations today are trying to solve performance problems with surface level solutions, more tools, more meetings, and more pressure. But the reality is, performance doesn't start at the task level, it starts at the human level. Welcome to the Practice Pulse, where we explore how forward thinking companies are building smarter systems, creating real impact, and scaling in a way that actually works. I'm your host, Nancy Margrit, founder of Optima Pro AI, where we help businesses scale through practical systems, automation, and operational clarity while still retaining the human touch. Today's conversation is one that really reframes how we think about performance, productivity, and well being inside organizations. I'm joined by Jordan Dunin, founder of HatchPath, a transformational coaching platform that helps organizations unlock performance by addressing what's really going on beneath the surface. What makes this especially powerful is that HatchPath isn't just theory. They're seeing measurable ROI through reduced burnout, lower absenteeism, and increased productivity with a model that blends human coaching with strategic use of data. And Jordan's story behind the building of this is one of the most powerful origin stories that we've ever had on the show. Jordan, I want to start with your story because it's not just a business origin story, it's a life transformation. Can you walk us through what happened and how that ultimately led you to building HatchPath?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Nancy. This is absolutely incredible. Thank you for that wicked intro. I think that's incredible as well. But yeah, the origin story. So I think that everybody has some form of what happened to me happen in their life, whether it's, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. We all go through something that's a catalyst for something great in our lives. And mine happened when I was about 20 years old. So in 2016, I'm from Canada. I was in Muskoka for Canada Day long weekend, which is also a few days before Independence Day or July 4th. And I dove off of a dock and I hit the bottom of a lake and split open my scalp. I needed about 15 staples. And I also did some serious damage to my neck and head. I later found out that it was a traumatic brain injury. I tore the rectus capitis from the back of my head, which is the muscle that turns your head. I fractured my C-spine. And fast forward, a year, I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, and I spent about 5 years in that neck collar, pretty debilitating pain that whole time, and didn't think that I was going to make it out. So I met some incredible people that changed my life. The first one was my wife. I'm very grateful. And I never was a spiritual person. I tell this story all the time, but I had a vision of throwing a ball with my future son. I have sons now, I have two. And that gave me that, kind of energy to move forward. So if you've read like Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, it's very, very empowering that he was able to find joy in one of the hardest times of his life or in anybody's life during the Holocaust. And I think that having a future that I desired or that I really believed that could happen enabled me to find joy in even the hardest moment of my life. Talking about books here, but another book that really got me through it was The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And it's true. And I mean, you don't judge a book by its cover, but its title is pretty easy to define. And when I was going through Lyme disease and traumatic brain injury, all I wanted was for it to not be there. But without it, I would have never built my business, would have never met my wife, would have never changed my habits, my life, would have never had my kids. And it eventually led me to build HatchPath. And HatchPath just means the birth of your new journey. I believe that anybody that goes through something or wants to achieve something has to change at their base level, which is identity. Um, you need help. You need a third party to be accountable, empathetic, and give you guidance. So that's what we do. So we have everything from nutritionists to PhD hypnotists. We have leadership coaches with 25 years of military experience. We have the head of performance of the Orioles as a mental health coach. We have, leaders of education. We have superintendents of education on our platform, coaching on life and career, and, so many more impactful people. So I look at us as the Etsy to eBay and the mental health and well-being market. And this year it's going really well. It hadn't gone really well for a long time. And I think that's the trajectory of everything. But yeah, we're super grateful for what we do this year. We're just about to pass 5,000 sessions. And my goal this year might be a large goal, but I think it's achievable to do 100,000 sessions this year. This past few weeks, it looks like we might be on track to do that.
Thanks for sharing your story that gives you a level, there's just a level of perspective that comes from going through something like that. And it usually changes how you see both performance and purpose. And it sounds like you really found yours through that process. As awful as it is to go through, it led you to where you are today. And now all of the people that you're helping through this system here. When you started HatchPath, what kind of gap did you see in the way that organizations were supporting their people that you wanted to feel?
That's the, billion or $1 million question. That's exactly it. There's a huge gaps. Employers are, I think there's a term for it. I'm not sure if it's correct, but they're like wellness washing. You know how there's like greenwashing for products. They'll employ a benefits company that has 2% usage and, delivered across their organization for their employees and state that they're a wellness company and that they care
Mhm.
about the well-being of their employees. And even beyond that, there's a lack of empathy and care in general. I remember when I was going through everything, you get 15-minute visits with your practitioner that'd seen 100 other people that day. Not that you're another ticket on their infrastructure, their docket, but you just felt as though there was a system that was broken from the start. People care a lot in that system. It's hard to have deep empathetic care. And one of the first people I came across helped me to slow down and really provided that empathy. So I've been through, psychotherapy, coaching, spiritual guidance, nutrition coaching, you name it personally. And the gap that I found, we do two things. If we do two things well, it's empathy and accountability. So people have a really hard time being accountable to themselves. That's why January is a funny month with New Year's resolutions. We'll commit to something and have so much confidence in our commitment, then halfway through the month, something else is more important, and we forget about it. So when you have that third party accountability, it has to be human. It has to be someone that can talk to you about it. It enables you to achieve your goals. Data shows up to 95%. You're 95% more likely to achieve your goal with a coach. And then empathy. Everybody's going through something, and it takes a little longer than 15 minutes to feel empathy. And I think that's something that we're really good at is providing empathy for those that need it, which is everybody.
Yeah, a lot of companies say they care about their employees, but there are a few that are actually operationalizing it in a meaningful way, like you're talking about doing. And I think it's very powerful that you're focusing on empathy and accountability. I think it's lacking in a lot of areas, especially in the corporate world. And we've come away from it in recent years, and it's so crucial to really meeting our objectives and helping other people. And most companies, that's what they're ultimately should be designed to do, is help people in some kind of way, help them get access to a product or service that's going to help them achieve their goals. And when we can tap into that empathy and accountability, then we're really getting them over the hump and to meet those outcomes. And I think you're right. We get in this tunnel vision of, what are my outcomes, and I'm going to push my way through. But you do have to have that accountability, and you have to stay empathetic to those around you in order to really meet what you're looking to achieve.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the way that we define it, like, I recently just published a book. It's called The Regulated Leader, and I think that being regulated is like the number one thing that people miss in leadership and everything. Regulated parent, regulated student, regulated whatever. You can't operate always on, and that's something I learned by getting sick and injured. Is that your nervous system is very, very important. And when people feel your energy, so the way that you respond in communication, the tone that you use when something goes wrong, the energy that you use in a conflict, that creates culture more than team building exercises or
Mhm.
team retreats. The communication that's used every day that comes from the top down is what builds your culture. And if your leader isn't regulated and they're shooting from the hip, they're reactive, they're angry, they're burdened with stress, there's only so much that you can do. And there's so much data that shows that when you're cognitively stressed, when there's um, weight on your shoulders, that you have such a limited capacity to respond. And you can feel that. I can feel that. Everybody can feel that. That's what we look to do is serve the entire company. And it's obvious when you say it out loud that when you're stressed, you're impacted. But imagine you were the coach of an NBA team or, whatever sport you desire to coach, and your team showed up hungover, stressed out, burnt out, injured, on their phones, scrolling TikTok all night until 2 a.m., not eating proper foods, overstimulated, underregulated, and then you expect them to perform in the game. Most workforces, people are operating at like 15% capacity because they're so overburdened with stress, whether that's at home, with their family, with finances, with the state of the world, because we get access to information every single second.
Mhm.
people have never been taught to regulate. And it's not as simple as, a meditation, which is great if that does help you regulate. I love meditating, but before you meditate, it's, the state that your body is in. And we're really focused on making sure that whether we're helping someone through relationships, finances, whatever it may be, that they're dealing with that situation from a regulated perspective, slowed down and focused.
So you touched on this a little bit, but at the core level, what is the problem that you're trying to solve for organizations that the traditional systems like HR programs or standard EAPs are not solving?
Yeah, I mean, burnout is an $8 trillion problem globally per year. It's costing companies $8 trillion. It's incredible. And we're not addressing it. We're seeing major layoffs. I think Meta just fired 15,000 people. Oracle just fired 30,000 people.
Mhm.
With the advent of AI, we're moving faster than ever, but people are being under-supported, and we're looking at human capital as if it's not a valuable resource. Human capital will always be our most valuable resource. It'll always be. I love AI. We use AI in our systems. We build great data resources. We have awesome workflows, and I know that Nancy, your company does this phenomenally, so that we can free up human capital to be at its best because nobody wants to be dealing with workflows all day because it's not the best use case for us, but companies aren't looking at human capital as a resource. And it's so overutilized and underprotected and underserved that people are just burning out. Like the data is
Mhm.
incredible. It's like 77% of people state that they feel burnout every single day. That's a lot of people. And then the numbers are staggering. It's like $8 trillion is costing the global workforce. So it's crazy.
Yeah. So it's great that you're stepping in and helping to solve that problem, because one of the things that really stood out to me about your model is that you're, pairing clients with both a coach and a concierge. Why don't you break that down a little bit for us? Like what does that structure look like, and why is it so effective?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like the typical employee assistance program or EAP model is kind of like a gym membership. They make a lot of money when people don't use their service. So, if you look at like LA Fitness, $49 or something a month, and they're oversubscribed infinitely, it's because they want people to not show up to their business. It's a business model that's been around for centuries. If you look at insurance, they make all their money on people not taking claims. Um, as a employee assistance program, your goal is to hopefully support the individuals using you, but the metrics aren't there. It doesn't make sense for that to be the priorities. How we work is we use a concierge team as well as a coach, and we've developed this over a couple of years of running our product. But we get about a 95% attendance rate on platform, which is absurd. So the typical employee assistance program is anywhere from 2 to 5%, sometimes upwards of 10%. But when people use us, they absolutely do. And we do that because we use a concierge team. The first step of every single interaction is someone just books a 15-minute concierge call. They don't have to know anything about what we do other than we can help them. In the concierge call, we learn about what their goals are, what they're struggling with, and what they hope to achieve. And we pair them with a coach. But not only do we do that, we book out all of their sessions with that coach, whether it's 4 sessions or 12 sessions. We have two different offerings. And when it gets on the calendar, it gets done. So just by scheduling, we remove the barrier to booking. We remove the cold feet approach to, I don't have time to do this. It's
Mhm.
on the calendar and it gets done. And then the coaches are awesome. They show up, they, facilitate transformation and change. And our reviews are incredible. I think we just passed 500 written testimonials, which I'm so
Wow.
grateful for. It's awesome to see. Yeah, so everybody has 2 things. Your concierge, if you can't figure out how to click the button to reschedule, you message your concierge within, you know, an hour, you'll have a response that they've gone ahead and taken action, and the coach is freed up to do the transformation. So the coach has no admin work. The coach is there to simply do their job, and the same for the concierge. The concierge is there to help. So, yeah, I think that model works incredibly well. We see it on our side. We love it. We've been told it's unscalable. I don't believe so. I think that we're doing an awesome job scaling it, and
Mhm.
people seem to love it too.
That level of support really removes friction in a way that most programs don't even consider, having someone to facilitate, and taking that off the shoulder of the coach, and then having the coach really focus on what they're good at and what their role is.
Yeah.
You also have a very diverse network of specialists. You have everything from mindset coaches to breathwork experts and leadership professionals. How do you ensure each individual is matched up with the right type of support? Is it like a training system with the concierge? How does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's also where a little bit of AI comes into play. So, all of our concierge have at their fingertips access to all coach bios and summaries. A client's fill out a really, really short intake form that makes relevant suggestions to the concierge. And then the concierge is a human element at a point in time where they have enough information, but they haven't yet met with that client. And sometimes they make a change, but there is a relevant suggestion to the concierge at the point of contact with the individual. And the concierge are trained on, every single coach. We have a relatively tight team, just over 30 coaches right now, which is different than the industry standard. The industry standard is like we have 25,000 practitioners, and that's like
Mhm.
something that we're proud of. But we want to fill our coaches' schedules. We want a tight knit team. We want people that we can trust and that we've been like vetted and accredited. We will scale to just over 100 this year, um, which is cool. But at one point, we had almost 1,000, and it was more of an ego metric than anything. It didn't provide value to people. It actually caused confusion and stress and overwhelm.
Mm,
So we simplified it. We shortened the bench, and we love our team. And yeah, so I guess I'm speaking to it, but the concierge approach, there is data integrated into that. And
okay.
then steps that the concierge takes to book are really simple. So we work on a credit-based system. Every single coach is the same price on our platform. It's one credit. And what client is either allocated 4 credits or 12 credits by their organization, and we book them all on the concierge call. It's our mantra, it's our success metric. They have to get booked. They can either cancel or reschedule at another time, but we have to book them on that.
It's nice that you have that personalization piece because that can really be where the transformation either happens or it falls apart.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think most organizations misunderstand about well-being and performance?
Another great question. I think that well-being is misunderstood because it's looked at as a cost. Performance is expected typically when you're hired to an organization. You have a skill set that you're put into a role that you're expected to perform at a certain level. Whereas well-being doesn't have an ROI typically in the minds of an average employer or someone, not even average. We were told by a multi-billion-dollar corporation that they have no budget for well-being. That's an interesting statement to make, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at well-being as a cost. If you have thousands of employees and well-being is a cost to you, that's an exponentially large cost. But if you understood well-being properly, you would see that when a supported employee, a regulated employee is a high-performing employee. Most of the cost leaks are not from strategy. Strategy can have like a 2 to 10% increase on bottom line sometimes, like if it's really good. Employee well-being can have a 4.3, on investment. And we proved that. It's very clear. It costs upwards of 200% of an executive's salary to replace them. So, like, let's say your executive's making 250 grand. It's going to cost you $500,000 to replace an executive.
Mhm.
Maybe that executive is burnt out. They have challenges at home. And the employer is just expecting them to show up, drop all their personal stuff at the door, and work. But what if they're not sleeping because they have an infant that, has colic? We had that, our second child, we never slept. We like slept
Yeah.
maybe 15-minute intervals. If people don't take a human element into a human at a job, you're going to miss what the investment of well-being can be. A lot of companies get it. I love it. There's so many. We celebrate them on our Instagram. There's like Patagonia, Nike, Earthrex is a local company. There's so many amazing companies that understand the value of well-being. Um, but in general, people don't. They don't associate it with performance.
I'd love if you could share an example of how addressing someone's personal challenges has directly impacted their performance at work.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So we have a gentleman, one of my great friends now. His name's Michael, and he came through us through an awesome charity called Operation Healing Forces that supports veterans, special operations veterans, families, and caregivers. And Michael was a special operations veteran. And when he came back to civilian life, he had been injured out of the military. And he'd really, really struggled with some things. And he'd been put through the typical routes of therapy and psychotherapy coming out of the military. And it just wasn't working, wasn't enough for him. And he came through Operation Healing Forces and came to us and worked with one of our hypnotists, gut health specialists, and other coaches. And in his own words, it was transformational. And actually, Michael has a small chapter in our book because his story is incredible. And Michael was able to rebuild his life. He actually, launched a YouTube channel where he was able to address some large concerns for people that were struggling with similar things for him. And then really cool is that he came back to us and he stated that he wanted to be a coach. He became certified and he actually coaches on our platform. Um, the implications if Michael was in the workforce, which he definitely is that that person, the employer probably never knew what Michael was struggling with. They probably never asked. They had never had the time to. It was not a lack of empathy, but a lack of time. And Michael, can now show up at work or, at home or everywhere he is, and he's fully present. He has the most calm nervous system I've ever seen on an individual. And, Michael's story is one of many. I take phone calls. I have my cell phone listed in my email signature, which maybe I shouldn't. But just recently, I had a phone call with an incredible nurse at Naples Comprehensive Health, which is another client of ours, and she explained how transformational a program was and that there were situations that she didn't believe that she was, going to get through, and her coach helps her to do that. So we can't necessarily put a number on what that does, but that person's now showing up at home, at work, everywhere in their life, more regulated, more steady, focused, and able to do whatever is needed because they're not bearing that weight as heavy.
That's a powerful story. So circling back to the ROI, so you mentioned seeing around a 4.3% or 4.3 times ROI tied to well-being initiatives. Can you break down how you're actually measuring that?
So we actually have an ROI calculator on our website. It's just backslash ROI calculator.
Cool.
But it's really simple. We use aggregate data and our data to show across the board, including turnover, absenteeism, burnout, presenteeism, and productivity. And it's a sliding scale, so you can tell us how many employees you have, what your turnover currently is. And to this date, we've surveyed and we've had 0% turnover of people that have used our program, which is absolutely
Wow.
like that's a
Yeah.
if you're expecting a 10 or 15% turnover, and if you looked at our program, you know that alone would be a return on investment,
Mhm.
of greater than 1. But if you look at productivity in general, if you have someone to be accountable to, your productivity improves about 15% across the board. It's just like a general study. At HatchPath, we survey our members, and they say that they're 10 times more productive. We can't use that number, so we just use the, general 15%. So that's interesting. And then burnout. We don't use surveys for burnout and absenteeism and other metrics. We actually AI scribe all of our sessions. Then we scramble the data, we anonymize it, and then we put it into our white paper, which is backslash white paper on our website. And then we also deliver that data to organizations, and we can see how people are overcoming different things. So burnout's a big one. That's not something that you can put a exact number to, but we estimate that we, improve that about 30%. And then, turnover absenteeism. I forget the exact metrics, but based on our data and aggregate data across like really trusted sources like Harvard Business and other studies, we built an awesome calculator that can show you. And we average about 4.2, 4.3 ROI. The bigger your business, the changes occur larger too.
That's very cool. That kind of measurable impact is really what shifts a tool from nice to have into a business critical system, which is what you've built here.
Yeah.
So you're working across a wide range of organizations, from special operations to healthcare to education. How do you adapt your model to such different environments?
Yeah. That's another great question. The model is awesome. If you think about it in like my ultimate goal is to service students too. Like we work with educators and admin at awesome schools. And, I think that students would be an incredible market that, when I was a student, I wish I had a third party support that wasn't my parents, that wasn't my teachers, but was somebody I could just talk to and, work through some of the problem sets I was having. But across the board, our system works. Concierge were able to identify the challenges and opportunities that each individual has and pair them with a coach that you know, we think would be best for them. I don't believe we've had one situation where a client has switched a coach ever. We've had people step away from our program, very, very few for, personal reasons and other stuff. But our coach matching has been our, bread and butter, and it's awesome. It's scalable too. We work with organizations, with 5,000 employees. We just joined employee assistance programs. We'll be in employee assistance programs come May. So we'll be working with organizations, upwards of 100,000 people. Uh, and it's, a really, really awesome way to add value to your company of any size.
Very cool. Yeah, that level of adaptability usually does require some strong systems behind the scenes. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those systems? I mean, you've touched on some of it and some of the ways that you're leveraging AI, but I guess I'm curious, are there other areas or system ways that you're leveraging AI or systems in order to
Absolutely.
keep this scalable? Because you've mentioned several times that you're passionate about staying scalable. So tell us how you're doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just me personally. In my workflow, I have an agent, I called him Kevin, and I built a super agent through Base 44, and Kevin, lives in all of my systems. He's connected to over 200 apps. He makes sure that I don't miss a beat. Every week on Friday and Monday, he builds a weekly update for me of things that I achieved, of things that I didn't achieve, and things to look out for, and more. Keeps the team up to date and builds those workflows. For our team, everything goes to a Slack channel. So we use a form when an employee onboards per organization. We summarize that form, put it in the Slack channel for the concierge that's on that, I guess, client, and then we have another agent that then researches that individual and builds us kind of like a report card so that the concierge has more information on that individual. And then based on that concierge call, they get booked with a coach. So that workflow is awesome. All of our workflows are automated. So from the time a person joins us to when they finish their last session, they're going through automated workflows. So their sessions with their coach are obviously one on one and human, but everything from emails, from updates, from reminders, call outs, whatever it may be, are all automated. AI is awesome on our back end for organizations too. So we deliver dashboards to every single organization. So all of our sessions are scribed. We're HIPAA compliant, SOC compliant, scribing these sessions. Our team never sees them, not once. Like that's
Wow.
between the coach and the client. We use a bridge to pull that data and then we scramble it and we return it to organizations in anonymous themes. So everything's real. Surveys, I believe that people lie on consistently, not because they're trying to, but just because they don't know.
Mhm.
And we pull real data and themes and deliver them to organizations. So every organization like receives all of the reviews, all of their themes, all of their data in a compliant dashboard that, I don't believe any other benefits company is doing. So they can see, birds of a feather or whatever the saying is. Even if we're working with 5% of the organization, we kind of paint the picture for what the overall landscape of challenges looks like for the organization. And then we build monthly group summits based on these insights for us, and we deliver them across the board for everybody in our ecosystem. So twice a month, we host a summit that we then publish as a podcast, but it's live. Anybody can attend in our network, and we're basing these themes on things that we see in this aggregate data.
Very cool. That's yeah, that's you've
I'm
got
sure
some
we have a lot more though. Like AI workflows, I kinda live in that as
yeah,
well. So, yeah, like
I
our
love
whole website's
systems.
built on Base 44 as well, so it's, like, fully updated whenever, anybody writes an article or, we have automations that just figure it out, and yeah, the
That's
AI is awesome.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really is. We're just at the tip of the iceberg for AI,
yeah.
so it sounds like you're staying on top of things. For other founders that are listening, especially those building in the wellness or performance space, what's been the biggest challenge in scaling something like this?
Yeah, I wanna say don't, get caught up in infrastructure and cost. So I built something that, not that I shouldn't have, but I built technology over a 2-year period that, cost a lot of money that we no longer use as of December 2024 because the internet, caught up to us. And any founder can build something with the snap of their fingers now overnight with, if you're an app founder, it's like one, we have like all these resources. You have Lovable Base 44. You can build,
Mhm.
a marketplace of well-being overnight. And it's about servicing your customer more than it is about building the infrastructure. So, whatever your core group of people are looking for and need, I would focus on that more than developing a product that you believe in. So, whether it's like you want to build a supplement brand, I'd be like, why do I want to build a supplement brand? Is it to support people in their burnout or their overwhelm? And it's like, what would those people be suited with? And it may be the supplement, but ask those questions, use AI to research and find product market fit. There was a gentleman that him and his brother just, did $1.8 billion a year, and I don't want to call it wellness because it's like an Ozempic lookalike product, but you can build large, large, large products with very small teams now because of AI, and you can deliver value. So, yeah, I would get away from high cost initiatives, raising money, VC capital, whatever it may be, and focus on your core offering and deliver it to a group of people that's willing to pay. Find someone that's willing to pay.
Right.
Do that for.
Yeah.
made all the mistakes, so I
No, that's
understand it.
true. You have to identify, who's your ideal avatar, your, ideal customer profile, like what does that look like? And are you speaking to them? Is this a solution that that they need, but also that they know they need? And then, what's the education look like if you need to educate them on why they need it? I love that's great advice for other founders. Looking ahead for you specifically, which with HatchPath, what would you need to happen operationally or strategically in order to really scale to the next level?
Well, I think that's another great question. But this past week, we've entered into employee assistance programs. And by the end of the year, we may 100x our last year. Finding the buyer where they are and not forcing fit. I've been struggling with that with our product. I identified a need, I showed the value, but we understood that employers now buy from benefits brokers. So
Right.
they don't want to buy directly from us because they already have a benefits provider and, it's built into their budget. So we went ahead and went to where they were buying. So I guess that's something for me and something for other
Mm,
founders is that you may have something that people very well need, but they're not used to the way that you're selling it. And that can cause friction and not let you, deliver the value that you know that you can. So I was very stubborn and I didn't think that that was the case, but I brought in some really smart people, smarter than me, and we were able to figure that out. So that's the next steps for us is getting into these large scale systems, employee assistance programs, benefits, and hopefully, within the next year we can really scale.
that's a great point. Like when I'm taking a deep dive into a company and looking at, what does our market roadmap look like when I'm talking about startups specifically, like it's diving, really have to dive into the ecosystem and understand all the different components that are working and really determine like what is the one, or sometimes it's a multiple prong approach that you need to take in order to get there. And like you said, you were really agile and pivoted into, okay, we're going to go through the employee assistance programs because that's an avenue which these companies are used to working with, so why not hit them right where they're going to buy it? So I think
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
stellar advice.
Yeah. Thank you. So like we're available like at $12 a person. Like that's how we've been
It's
able
insane.
to like per
Yeah,
month. But we've
that's
really
great.
pivoted. So like a year ago we were like $2,200 a person lump sum upfront. The numbers are very similar, but now they're different in a manner that's more digestible and accessible and through a different provider.
Right.
Yeah, things happen and things change, and I guess you just gotta stay open to being wrong and changing.
Yeah, it's an important quality of a leader, being able to pivot and say, okay, we're going to shift and go this way because this is what the data tells us we need to do. So that's
Yeah,
great advice.
thank you.
So, as we look ahead over the next 3 to 5 years, especially with the rapid rise of AI changing workforce dynamics, how do you see the relationship between human performance and technology evolving?
Yeah, hopefully they live together. So, the narrative we see around AI is that it's replacing humans right now. Maybe. I don't believe that that is necessarily true. Our
Right.
goal with it is to elevate human performance or human performance might not even be the right word, but, make sure that we are doing the absolute best at what we can do. We had like farming equipment, I don't know, hundreds of years ago, and we thought that that was an innovation that was going to
Right.
disrupt humans. And, then we had computers and email and the internet. And it's like, this has happened before, but how is it going to enable us to grow and thrive? So, yeah, I think that hopefully we evolve together and that AI and human performance can live cohesively. And I believe that they will, and they'll just start to blend. Like our phones, we're basically cyborgs already. Like my wife and I, we make sure that we have blocks on all of our social media and emails and stuff on the weekends so we can be
Mhm.
present for kids. But otherwise, it's like we're accessible immediately. I think COVID taught us something. It was like our well-being is so important. And when we don't have our mental well-being because it was such an interesting time, it, can cause so much trauma. I think AI may do the same, that when, rapid workforce and all this stuff is going to create an understanding that our well-being is the most important thing that we have and we get time to focus on it now because AI is doing all of our workflows and stuff so that we can perform at our best. But I think there may be like a societal change around how we
Mhm.
make be like it may actually change everything. Like the way that we look at democracy or capitalism may change because there may be some industry titans like Elon Musk might be $1 trillion man. He has like $1 trillion pay option on his company. And it's like, as people become trillionaires and we have mass firing, it's pretty crazy. Like I saw Oracle, they fired 30,000 people and they gave their CEO 30 million bucks. It's a right now is interesting and trying, but I'm wondering hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years that we start to evolve with it and understand how it helps us and lean into that more.
Mm, it sounds hopeful. It's an interesting time right now, and even more interesting to look at what we're going to be dealing with in the future and how we'll navigate that and hopefully shift and improve and evolve as we're meant to do as humans.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so we before we wrap up, we're gonna hit the lightning round. So these
Yes.
are quick questions with short answers. All right, so what is one myth about workplace well-being or performance that you would eliminate forever?
That it's a cost.
Good. That's good. All right. What habit keeps you steady when the stakes are high?
Intentional breathing.
That's a good one. What gives you the most hope right now?
And people.
People. Yeah, that's me too. So where this is the last one, where can listeners follow your work and learn more about HatchPath?
Yeah, perfect. So we have a lot of spaces. Our Instagram's HatchPath Coach. Our website is hatchpath.io. And all of our press and media is on our website and our Instagram and wherever else. So those are easy. And then, yeah, you can connect with me personally, Jordan Dunin, on all platforms. I'm not on many, but wherever you can find me. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Nancy. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being on. Jordan, this was an incredible conversation. And I think what you're building is something that's only going to become more important as organizations evolve, and hopefully inspires some organizations to become more human focused and really tap into their human talent. You're really helping redefine what it means to support people, not just employees, but as humans. And I think that is of the utmost importance right now. So, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it. For everyone listening, if you found this conversation valuable, make sure you subscribe and share it with another founder or leader and connect with Jordan to learn more about HatchPath. We'll include links to everything that he just mentioned in the show notes. So, click away. And as always, innovation creates possibility, implementation turns it into growth. We'll see you in the next episode of the Practice Pulse. Thanks.